Faraz, we are good to go.
Yeah, Nidhi.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar on the safe routes to school today. And what a better day than today, because it is World Happiness Day, and the words that you associate with happiness is always children. But today we're not just going to talk about safe routes to school. We're going to talk about how mobility, safety, and community well-being contribute to overall happiness. Before we begin, I would like to introduce all our speakers for the day. We have Ms. Anna Zibach, advisor at GIZ Albania. Along with her is Ms. Rexhina Basha, junior advisor at GIZ Albania. They're both part of the SUTI 2 project. We also have with us Ms. Ray, who is the planning advisor, City of Tirana, and Mr. Ankit Bhargava, co-founder, Sensing Local. I'm Neetu Anna Joseph, technical advisor at GIZ India for the Sumaka project. But before we start, we would like to have a short poll. Please make sure all of you participate. So the first question for the day is, did you walk or cycle to school as a child? Faraz, do give me a heads up so that we can move to the next question. Our second question for the poll is, how do most children in your community travel to school? And the last question for this poll is, would you feel comfortable letting your child walk or cycle to school independently? I hope all of you are responding. Please make sure that you participate. So moving on, the very first question that we asked you is, how did you travel to school? I have experiences where I've both walked as well as cycled to school. But it's quite unlikely that students today have a lot of options. It's most probably that they're stuck in traffic, they're inhaling a lot of pollution, and they're just losing a lot of their time. But just imagine if we could provide every child an opportunity to walk or cycle to school safely and confidently. And that's exactly what the Safe Routes to School project is all about. We are here to explore how small changes like better crossings, smarter signages, and safer streets can make a difference in how children experience their daily commute. So what exactly is SRTS, or Safe Routes to School? It's a global initiative to promote safe, convenient, and active transportation, and focuses on improving pedestrian and cyclist safety, reduce traffic congestion, and enhance community health and well-being. But it also does kickstart a cyclical loop where promoting active transportation improves health, reduces congestion, builds in a sense of community, and has also been proven to improve academic performances in children. Any of you who have heard of SRTS or are familiar with the concept of SRTS would have heard of the 5 E's of Safe Routes to School, which provide a comprehensive framework for making school journeys safer and encourage walking and cycling. So these 5 E's are education, encouragement, enforcement, evaluation, and engineering. While evaluation and engineering are often prioritized, the other 3 E's are neglected. But it's essentially these 3 E's that can help bring about a behavioral change and a possible shift to sustainable transport modes. Our work in Bangalore goes to emphasize that overall project development is what will lead to successful implementation of SRTS. So we've broken down the project into 2 parts. Part A, where we developed a toolkit called RASTE, which is the Kannada word for streets, and an acronym for reimagining active school transit experiences. And part B, which focuses on evaluation and engineering interventions at the street level. So I'll quickly take you through what Raste is all about. The vision was to empower schools with tools and knowledge to promote active mobility, revitalize cycling and walking within the school students. And the end goal was to encourage behavioral change in the future generations, empower schools as agents of change, foster active mobility, and create a scalable model which other schools could then go on to replicate. And all of these toolkit under these 3 E's consists of 35 activities. So broadly speaking, under education, we've defined 23 activities, which could be bucketed into these 5 heads of awareness building, art and creative learning, individual and group games, skilling and training, as well as interactive events and workshops. They're all identified for across age groups and can be anchored by the teachers within the classroom level, or also engage subject experts depending on the level of difficulty. Under encouragement, we've listed 6 activities to promote behavior change and incentivize active participation from the students. All of the activities under encouragement could be anchored just by the teachers themselves and does not need an expert's assistance. For enforcement, again, we identified 6 activities which could be taken up by the students themselves or the parent association as well as the teachers association. So all of this, though done, where does that leave the school? So the role of the school was to ensure that these activities were taken up. So for that, they had to set up a core team, select activities which were applicable for them. And we kind of recommended that each school take up 12 activities in an academic year, support and track the program, build in a reward program, and bring in a permanent committee for sustained commitment. And then how do they evaluate the impact? Do course correction as and when required and evaluate if the program goals are being achieved or not. As part of our work in Bangalore, so we've worked with 4 schools and over 3,000 students. And I'm happy to let you all know that all of these 4 schools have a functional core team now. The second part of our work was the Safer School Zone, or the SSZ as we call it. It essentially targets redesigning pedestrian infrastructure, traffic management to create safe environments for school. The SSZ can then be further broken down into 3 zones. We will get into the details of which later. And all of our design interventions align with the IRC codes as well as the IRAP assessment. But when we start with evaluation, the first question that comes to our mind is the how. How is it that the kids are accessing schools? So what is their primary mode of transport? So we did a show of hands survey, which then helped us understand their travel modes, identify their patterns, and become the first stage of engaging students in discussions on sustainable transit. This was done at the classroom level and was helmed by the class teachers. Once we know the how, the second question is the why. Why is it that they're traveling in a certain way? It's important here to understand that children are not decision makers. It's the parents who take the decisions for the child. And that led us to do a second round of surveys exclusively for parents to understand what is it, what are their concerns, what are their challenges to opt for sustainable transport. Is it lack of first and last mile connectivity? And what is the willingness in them to shift to a sustainable modes if all were to be rectified? And that took us to the what. Understanding what are the challenges, how are the traffic flows, are there any parking constraints or limitations, is there adequate pedestrian facility, what are the traffic management practices and the other areas of conflict. So this was a self-evaluatory survey which the school themselves had to take up. But for our particular work in Bangalore, we also used the star rating for school tool, which was developed by IRAP to audit an extensive list of parameters as well. So this brings us to the end of evaluation. Moving on to engineering, I would now like to ask Ankit to take us through the design and engineering elements of the work that we did.
Thank you, Neetu. Can I share my screen? Is that okay?
Yes.
Please let me know when the screen is visible, then I can.
The screen is visible, Ankit.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Um, I'm from Sensing Local, as Neetu said, and we've been assisting GIZ in some of the interventions in Malleshwaram. And I'll be covering a little bit of the program pilot that was done there. There are five basic things that what we thought was important to communicate. One is what is the safe school zone in the SRTS context? How did we determine interventions and audit parameters? What were the gaps that we found in different guidelines when we were implementing this on ground? A little bit about the process that we followed in Malleshwaram and some learnings after this project has been completed of sorts. So I think we saw the slide already about the 5E, so I won't get too much into this. But essentially, Safer School Zone is really focusing on the infrastructure on ground to make the area safe for children to walk and cycle. And as Neetu said already, that we have been looking at all the guidelines that are available nationally across different IRC, Indian Road Congress codes, the IRC, IRAP assessment, as well as other global case studies. So our starting point was actually the IRC SP32, which is dedicated towards creating safe commute to schools, which is a different name for safe routes to schools, in which there are three zones that they have defined around any school. The most important zone is the school access zone, which is 100 meters in front of the school gate. In the map, you can see it as the red line, and the stars are the different kinds of schools. This varies depending on the kind of school. Very young kids, the zone is very different. Bigger high school, the zone is very different, but it's about 100 meters. And it includes the two main junctions along this main access road. This is the focal point of all the interventions. It's the maximum intervention, maximum enforcement zone. This is followed by the school proximity zone, which is just outside it, 150 meters to 500 meters, where we are hoping to really limit the vehicular speeds. And then there is a transition zone, which is the zone for vehicles to slow down before they enter the school proximity zone. So these are the three zones that IRC has defined. And this is a really good starting point for us to understand what it means to create a safe access zone around the school. Our first exercise actually through this process was to outline what are these different interventions, and you'll see the table that is defining where the safer junctions are, safer footpaths, road markings, parking management, school zone signages, so art on street, all of these different interventions that make up that are things that we need to do. Where should they be located? And so this table really classifies them in these three zones. But even though we had some of this information, what we were really missing was that oftentimes the interventions across different global case studies chose certain interventions over the others. And we were always trying to understand, but why did they choose some interventions and not the others? And so we kind of defined ourselves five key objectives while designing a safe school zone. And this is really around saying, okay, are your interventions hitting these objectives? So what have you chosen and what are we achieving? So this is something that has really come out of the work in Malleshwaram. And what you will constantly see is at the bottom of the screen, I've also highlighted the gaps that we found along the process. This slide puts together all of those interventions for the school access zone. So just the 100 meters in front of the school. This is again something that we were really missing in the guidelines. The guidelines often spoke of interventions in isolation. So they just said, oh, you need to have signage, you need to have crossing, you need to put this. But it never really put together an imagination of what a safe school precinct could look like. And so we've really done that, which is to say that what does a model plan look like? And this is a great exercise to communicate as well to different stakeholders that this is what we're expecting to do before we go and audit what is on ground. So this is again addressing a very real gap that we found. Once we had clarified what kind of interventions we wanted, We also went about creating a very extensive but easy to use audit form. And again, this is something that we were really lacking in the context of India and Bangalore, where none of the templatized audits were available. So as part of this project, we've also created templates that anybody can use, especially in our context, and really go, and whether it's a school child or it's a traffic police or a community group, can just go on a junction and check box whether there's a crossing or not, whether there's signage or not, whether there's a speed hump or not. And what is so nice about this is that in order to really succeed at scale, we really need to get children involved. And to do that, you have to really simplify this exercise. So we've really made sure that we design it in such a way that anybody can go and audit their junctions for safety and the nature of infrastructure that's present. Um, so this is largely the work that was being done in order to understand the structure of the project. Coming to the specific pilot of Malleshwaram, what you see on the map on the right hand side, and I'm sorry, this is very difficult to imagine for people who are not in Malleshwaram, but we chose about 6 schools in a vicinity of about 1 kilometer diameter. And each of the school access, many of the times there were multiple schools in a similar area, so they may share a school access road, and also may share junctions that might be important to intervene in. So there were a total of 6 schools, 14 junctions, and 4 access roads. And the process that we followed was to really first looking at an online map and just plotting where is the school, what is the school access road, so where is the 100 meters, where is the junctions. This is the mapping of the safer school zone. Second, we conducted the audits on ground. Third, we went about using a visioning exercise as well as understanding the on-ground challenges. What would be the interventions that would be needed? And based on the interventions, traffic flow, and some of the issues, creating a traffic management plan, and then really sharing this with everyone around it. I have a little bit more detail with regard to the drawings that we created and the exercises we did. And I'll get on to that now. So this is, for example, this is one of the sheets that you would see for a particular junction. So this is a school called Vidya Mandir. This is one of the junctions on the safe access zone. It's a 6th May and 11th Cross junction. It's a 4-way cross. And you can see pictures of each of the roads on either side, the issues that were mapped. We also did extensive measurements of the footpath, the shoulder area, whether it's encroached or not, whether it's a vendor encroachment, tree encroachment, what the carriageway widths are, all of that, and the footpath width. So all of this, the section is extremely detailed in the documentation process. And this really helps us understand what we need to do in order to create a safer road, but also safer footpath. And then we put this again on an online map just to contemplate, to say, okay, what might be the safe school plan here? And we went on ground with the government to then say that, okay, this is what we want to do. What do you think? And they evaluated this on ground. And after that evaluation, we created, again, technical drawings, which were reassessing the carriageway width. Sometimes you're normalizing carriageway widths. The shoulder lines are not clear. So everything between the shoulder and the footpath is absolutely unclear. So we need to really demarcate what is a curb, what is a footpath, what is a carriageway. And oftentimes we are also reducing carriageways, which are otherwise very extensive. And what you'll notice on the left-hand side is a table of all the interventions that were there for this junction. We actually, because we did the data, we were able to then exactly estimate which intervention is happening where, and therefore be able to also estimate the budgets required for every junction or drop-off zone. This is an image of a drop-off zone. I actually didn't kind of dwell on the interventions here, but you can see some of them, which is the signage for a pedestrian crossing, the curb extension area, the speed hump painting. Pedestrian crossings themselves have to be put on all the roads. Sometimes there were vendors, so creating a vendor location plan, and so on and so forth. This is the drop-off and pickup zone. So really understanding which is the no parking area, where can the vehicles which will come in to drop the kids, where should they be located? How do we need to signify them on ground? Where is the painted area where they can pause versus where the queue up will happen? Yeah, so all of these are the kind of interventions. I do have a few renders to show you what a before after is. So this is a case of the same junction that I was showing you in drawing. And what you can see here is the render that we made for what will happen if you put all these interventions in place. The same thing is true for a drop-off zone as well. This is what we have right now. You can very clearly see that it's very ambiguous where vehicles can travel and people can travel safely. And then you see that this is the kind of intervention that we are hoping to really make. Um, I can stop and dwell on anything based on what you think, Neetu. But the last slide, which I wanted to leave us with, is a safe school zone plan can be created by a school or a municipality. We often imagine that the governments have to lead everything, but that's not true. Schools can lead it as well. But what we realized is that all of the different stakeholders, which is the school, the community groups, the traffic police, and the municipality, all need to work together regardless of who initiates it. And there is a very nice framework that we discovered along the way, which is called the RASI template. R stands for who is directly responsible, A stands for who is the approval authority, S stands for who will support the task, and I stands for who should stay informed. And this on your screen is actually a variation of what we did in context of Malleshwaram, saying that who is directly responsible and who should support it. And so this kind of an exercise should be done in any city by themselves to say who is going to initiate it and then what are the different roles. Because otherwise, if expectations are not clear, we will always end up in failure. And this way, we always know who is going to nudge, how do we follow up, where pressure systems need to be applied, etc. So I can stop here, and Neetu, happy to go back or dwell on anything that you like.
Yeah. So we'll have a specific question and answer session at the end. So just to, kind of wrap up the work that we've done so far in Bangalore, I'll just pull back my presentation. I hope the screen is visible. Yeah. So Ankit also spoke about the engineering element. So what we've now developed are two outputs as part of the work. One, the Raste toolkit, and the second, a guidebook for SRTS, which was officially launched by the ministry on during the 17th Urban Mobility India Conference in October 2024. Following which a couple of other cities have now expressed interest, and GIZ is now supporting Bhubaneswar as well as Shillong in taking up safe routes to schools in their cities as well. I would also want to just, go on. We've heard a little bit about what the work in Bangalore has been, but we want to take another poll, and I hope, Faraz, can we go to the poll section? So the first question is, what has been the most surprising insight so far? Like, is it the fact that, there's so much of detailing that is required? Or our second question is, what is the biggest challenge that you perceive in your neighborhood or in areas of residence is that kind of makes it difficult to implement walking and cycling to school? And if you were to do an SRTS in your neighborhood, what is the feasibility? Do you have the buy-in from the government? Are your neighborhoods cohesive enough? Is there support system built in as well? Please make sure you can open your chat box. You can see all the polls that are coming up. Make sure that you respond to all of the questions. And if you have missed out on earlier questions, please scroll back up and submit your votes. I would now request Anna to take over and run us through the work that they've done in Tirana. Anna, over to you.
Thank you, Neetu. And it was very, very interesting and inspiring to hear about the case of Bangalore, especially the approach, the amazing data driven approach. I'm here today with my colleague, Regina. We're working on the Sustainable Urban Transport in Albania project, where we provide transport advocacy support for municipalities in Albania. In the first phase of the project, we've supported initiatives such as the Walking Task Force, which made it possible for different departments of the municipality of Tirana to gather and discuss all issues that are related to walking, and later on also create and harbor and sustain support for the School Streets project. There, we've also helped the municipality of Tirana in designing one of the first and a few of the first capital construction interventions for school streets. And these are all traffic calming measures. Ray can provide more detail a little bit later. And finally, we're very excited now to be working on we're very excited to be working on the Walk 21 conference, which will take place this year in Tirana, Albania, from October 6th until the 10th, and will host 500 global delegates to discuss about all things walking. There, we'll also launch an initiative, but I don't want to spoil all of it. We can leave that for the end. And now I'll begin by sharing a video that we've prepared to showcase the work that we've done in Albania with respect to the School Streets project and also the Cycling Academy project. For the most part, the focus has been on pedestrian-friendly and child-friendly infrastructure to try to also multiply the spaces available, public spaces available. I hope you can see my screen, and I hope you can also hear the voice with the sound. Awesome.
Having a child-friendly city means having a city for everyone. It's not just the kids, it's the parents, it's the caretakers, it's seniors. If a city is child-proof, then it means that it works for everyone. Because if we build cities taking in account the citizens that are the weakest in terms of physical power, are the ones that are more dependent on other people's movements, then we're planning a city that works for everybody else who is not limited in their moving or in their activities.
We're here at the school block. This is how we like to call it. Even though we're working with Streets for Kids, this is actually the biggest pilot project that we've achieved and realized so far. We managed to add 1,500 square meters of added pedestrian area, so much more seating, and fixing this by adding not only safe infrastructure to support this mobility for people that walk to school, but also adding infrastructure that allows for resting and stopping, and where you can actually, after taking them, spend some quality time together, discussing the day, having face-to-face interactions. We have been able, project by project, pilot by pilot project, to change the mindsets of decision makers, thinking from providing more and prioritizing actually the needs of cars to prioritizing the needs of pedestrians and the vulnerable groups in the city. Our long-term goal, actually, together with our partners from GIZ, is to change and build capacities of the city itself.
Klasat zhvillohen në bashkëpunim me GIZ-in. Neve tashmë që prej hapjes së këtij projekti deri në finalizimin e tij kemi ecur hap pas hapi me ta. Trajnimi funksionon në orë 60 minutëshe, ku ndahet gjysma e parë 30 minuta është teoria dhe pjesa tjetër është praktika. Në pjesën e teorisë, neve zhvillojmë disa tema të ndryshme, si për shembull pjesët përbërëse të biçikletës, si duhet vendosim kokoren edhe jelekun fosforeshent. Gjithashtu, neve mësojmë edhe për shenja të veçanta, sinjalistike, rrugore dhe pastaj zhvillojmë ushtrime të ndryshme që i ndihmojnë ata të fitojnë reflekse për gjërat që kemi folur gjatë teorisë.
That's the video, and we're very excited also to take the work that we've done on school streets on another level. So now not just design and infrastructure support, but also policy support in the form of the school street design guidelines. These will be used by municipal employees to aid them in designing and implementing these school streets, and we're hoping to have that launched by the conference at Walk 21. On October 6th until the 10th. And now I give the floor to Ray to make a presentation which will take us into the details of the school street implementation and design.
Hi everyone, thank you Anna for the introduction and the beautiful video. It's always great to look back at these images from the school streets and all the other projects that GIZ has supported in the city. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay. Can you see? I'm not sure. Can you see my screen or is it just this one?
Now it's just Teams.
Okay, but did I switch to the presentation or not? Because I cannot see both screens. Okay, thank you. So the Tirana School Streets program is a very image-based presentation, actually, which is like the best way to show the impact of this program in real life. And
sorry, I think there's an issue with just full screen. So maybe you can just share as is. I'm sure the images will still be very impactful, even if they're slightly smaller.
Is this still okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, this is the image where we come from to discuss or to see how Tirana actually looks like now. This is Tirana in the 80s. There basically no car ownership, so no one has a vehicle to move with, but everybody's walking or cycling. And this is what we see now, or the thing that basically becomes the need or the problem that we need to solve. This is our school streets, and most of them, kids are struggling to walk between cars or vans, and the traffic is problematic. But what we can basically encounter in most of them is limited infrastructure and space for pedestrians, and them along with caregivers and strollers or cyclists actually having to walk on the roadbed, so among cars, etc. So this is why the School Street program basically was born. The pilot early in 2020, trying to look at the city by the height of a 95 centimeter tall human, which is a 3-year-old, being in that situation. So this is the Edith Durham School, the first capital construction one that was supported by GIZ. What we see is a classic situation that I mentioned before. We have just a meter wide of sidewalk, and it's also covered in barriers, which doesn't allow the free flowing of pedestrians in and out of it. So basically we're seeing a caregiver with a stroller walking in the roadbed at all times and not being allowed to be in a safe pedestrian area. So the anatomy of this school streets is basically this very not sufficient sidewalks, a very wide and generous vehicle lane, and parking lanes. And what we, so this is what the existing or school streets that we try to look like right now. So a parking lane, that is what we're looking for to sacrifice usually, small sidewalks, and the vehicle lane. So walking back or further, we try to reclaim that parking lane, as I said, build a bigger sidewalk which is comfortable of at least 4 meters, that allows for all those activities that were also mentioned in the video. And we try to come up with the street looking like this. So basically the space is redistributed for people this time. This new 4-meter sidewalk offers space for people to sit, for a new shade, for people to walk freely, and also for furniture or barriers that will prevent this pedestrian space from vehicle invasion, basically. So the street looked like this. How we start this process is by throwing a party there. Why do you say? Because throwing a party and showing the decision makers how much fun this is and how a street could look like if there are more people, more laughter, more kids in it, has been very crucial in putting this program forward. And then the construction process begins with the city workers, which has been a key component of this program. Basically, partners, Chandra Mardoni, in this case, the local NGO, provides the design input, and then the city commits to building the street with free labor, basically, and by using materials that they have in their maintenance department, which is key to the ongoing maintenance and to achieving cheap projects that don't require a lot of resources, but that can be built and replicated easily. And this is what we get after we have those extra 3 meters added to the sidewalk. Basically, we get the freedom to get out of school, meet our grandpa, meet our dad, run to them, hang out with our bike, park our bike in the new school street, and a calm street that allows for passing traffic, but with limited speed because of the narrow lane that we have now. And calm and relaxed and joyful and entertaining space for pedestrians and the younger kids. This also allows for continuous programming of that space. This is an image of a street party that was thrown after the project was built. So basically, there's now lots of opportunities open and available for this new space that we've built. And if this happens in all the schools in the city, and there's like 74 of them in the urban area of Tirana, that means you have 74 new squares, parks, never-ending possibilities of celebrating the streets in almost every neighborhood in the city. And then to move on to the street block, to the school block, which is what was mentioned in the video as well. This is like one of the most ambitious projects we've built so far. And that's because it has 4 institutions. So it covers 4 educational institutions, 2 schools, a kindergarten and a nursery that are all surrounded by this 4 streets. So to look back again once more at the anatomy of the school street, we look for streets that have a parking lane, which is what we can sacrifice and reclaim for kids and for pedestrians. Sidewalks that are limited, barriers. So basically, this is the existing situation that we're looking for. And then we move on to improve it with reclaimed space, a more narrow travel lane that ranges from 2.8 to 3 meters, increased space for pedestrians and kids, elements like paint that can be implemented or developed with the kids and the community members. Seating is super important, new trees, play features or anything. So basically, space that can offer, and not necessarily you need to include new play elements in the street, because as we know, kids can also play just in dirt or with branches or with leaves from the trees that are present in the street. Some before and afters from these projects, which are very important to see how space gets revitalized and gets new uses. This is a gate of the school, of one of the 4 schools in that school block. And we see that this gate wasn't being used. So the school is using another entrance, basically. And this one was completely forgotten. There's this is a garbage area. It's full of cars. And after the project was implemented, and let me show you this other image too, it looked like this. After the project was implemented, this is what we get now. Even on a rainy day, it's full of humans. There's hundreds of parents here waiting for their kids to get out, and the school is using this as an exit and as an entrance for the smaller kids, so basically for 5-year-olds. This has smoothed their process too. They don't need to open the main gate. There's no need for all the parents of all age groups together at that same door at the same time. So basically, this is a new use of space that came up just because we expanded it, and that's it. So the school had now found a platform to make changes to their daily operations. And in the other angle, which is important again for us to understand the space, is moving the garbage area and reclaiming this old bunker into what is now the waiting area for the younger kids. So to sum up with the Tirana School Street program, it has it basically consists in this phases, at least especially when it began. There's the data gathering component, which basically looks at how kids go to school in said school. Also, site review of the school situation to also make sure that the physical conditions are what we need to make the implementation to do the project. Then the selection, and this all happens in close collaboration of the departments of the city that are mobility and transport and traffic, and then the school staff. Design, and then the institutionalization that Anna talked about also is this guide that's being prepared, that whose long-term objective is that all schools in Tirana, but not only, also in the country, are equipped with a school street with a safe access. And at this point, the implementation of 20 more is underway. So The design is being made as we speak, and 20 more sites will be approved. So the city basically will have 30% of total urban area schools equipped with a school street by next year, which is a massive step forward, thinking about where we started from 5 years ago. Again, this is what I just explained right now. So our process has been a temporary or a pop-up street party, capital construction, and now immediate or simultaneous construction of 20 more, which is really what we were, or what I was talking about in that video before, that what we want is that the capacities are built within the city and they're able to build more of it at the same time, so that the impact is bigger and simultaneous at the city level. This is our School Streets Brigade. We're very proud and happy with them. They're also like one of the best indicators of the capacity building in the city, because basically now they are able to make decisions on site on how to build a good and a better even school street. The Walking Task Force, which is a group comprised of so many departments within the city that are able to communicate a little bit better to achieve the common goals of making walking better for the city of Tirana. And to finalize with a Walk 21 conference that we're organizing in close partnership with JZ and hosting together. This is actually also a call for you guys to come to Tirana in October, where we will be together with many policymakers, experts, people from the world of walking, cycling, and good public space design, to discuss about projects like this one that could be also a great stepping stone for the region that we represent here. So thank you, and you are welcome to Tirana.
Thanks, Ray, and congratulations to the whole team. That was just a lot of amazing work. And we're hoping to see some of the street designs that we've also worked on come live in the next couple of months. So hopefully we'll have some pictures to show with the larger team as well. I think it's critical here to understand that, projects like these take time and effort. And, from what I've realized, that you've worked on this for about 5 years. And to make that dent is difficult, but we just keep doing what we do, and hopefully things will turn for the best. I'll now open up for question and answers. All participants and attendees can drop their questions in the chat box, and we will take it up from there. Okay, so we have a question now. So I'll just read out the question. When you do develop safe school streets, blocks, or quarters, how do you approach safety in terms of measuring it? Example, when developing or shifting spatial arrangements. What are the indicators for increasing space to a certain extent? Is it based on best practices or local context? I'm assuming this is directed to Anna, your team.
Great. Do you want to pick it up or should I go?
Yeah. So one of the indicators of selection, which I talked about, is that, and it's local at this moment, but it can be implemented elsewhere too, is that parking lane that I was talking about. So we're looking for streets that have a parking lane that we can reclaim. We have done interventions in streets that don't have a parking lane, but have had like a wider vehicle lane that you can minimize down to 2.8. So basically the standard is that the 2.8 vehicle lane is enough to accommodate also emergency vehicles like ambulances or fire trucks. And obviously for the pedestrian area expansion, the one reasoning or that's enough is that added space will provide a free path that's missing usually what we see in those 1 meter wide sidewalks that don't even allow for a stroller to pass by. And to go back to the start of the question, which was how do we measure basically the impact of it? We go back and we do surveys. A longer term impact would be how people go to school, kids go to school, but that requires a very a long study, basically, of many years. That's a target indicator that you cannot measure very quickly, basically. And also kids change in school. They don't come, they leave it in 5 years, basically. But if walking is improved in general in the neighborhood, of course, and they would feel safer during their whole route, of course, they would walk more to school. Something else that we ask is how much time do they spend in this street before and after? Where do they cross? We can do countings basically in crosswalks or in sidewalks. Measuring what percentage of the people are walking on the roadbed versus the sidewalk and intended infrastructure, how many are crossing at the crosswalk versus out of it, how many are crossing the crosswalk running versus walking, and these are some of the indicators that are very useful in showing how then the space gets used after. So basically in one of the images that I showed, you saw everyone was walking in the roadbed. In that case, you would have, after the project is implemented, you would have 100% increase in people walking in intended infrastructure on the sidewalk versus people walking on the roadbed. Or people enjoying the street, that's also usually a 60% increase in people enjoying spending time in that space. Or we've seen a decrease in people that run in crosswalks in the pilots that we've done, that kind of data gathering.
Thanks, Ray. Ankit, we have a question for you. Can you see the question?
Is it the last one? We are working on a grant. No, sorry. Can you point me to which one it is?
Okay, I'll read out the question. It's from Smritika. Some schools lack space within the campus to accommodate their school buses. How are you addressing this in the on-street design for Malleshwaram, since most of these buses drop the kids off at the curb?
Sorry, sorry, I'm just reading this again. Some schools have space. Yeah, actually, this is the main point of the design of the drop-off zones. The drop-off zones, according to IRC code, are about 5 to 6 meters. So we are really, the design of the road itself has to accommodate for it. So right now, what you'll notice that in front of schools, you have a huge parking lane. And I think this was visible also in the other project. And it's free parking. No, but everyone is just parking as they like. And so one of our efforts on ground has also been to negotiate with the residents to not park on one side of the road, at least, so that we can demarcate that road as a no parking area, and then define the area for parking of a bus or a car to drop off. And especially in the case that there are big buses coming, in our case, there weren't big buses, there was vans and autos coming. So if that is a case of a bus and cars drop-offs, then we have to be separating them, and the carriageway width has to be adequate enough to do that. The complementary intervention to defining a drop-off zone was also to convert the area into a one-way, and therefore allow only a select amount of traffic to come in and go one side. And so if you have parking allowed of the bus on one side, the other lane is where you can pass by in case you are in a car and you're dropping off your kid. You can drop off the kid and pass by. So in a two-lane scenario, that's what it would look like. One is dedicated for drop-offs, the second is allowed for through. I think this is exactly what a lot of the work that we've been doing is to look at the linkages between interventions. You can't just say, I want to mark an area for a bus drop-off. No, that has to be complemented with, let's say, a one-way blocking off area. It has to be complemented with signages on the area to say, okay, don't park here, and so on and so forth. So it's multiple interventions coming together to make that possible.
Just to add to it,
That sort of helps.
it becomes critical that we build in some flexibility in our designs so that we could accommodate all kinds of traffic at all points of time in the day as well. So that flexibility has to be inbuilt in as well. We have another, I wouldn't say it's a question, but rather a comment on a work that's been done at VIT Vellore, and they are working on a grant project that is assessing child safety in the public transit hubs of Vellore. And they're looking for support. Pavitra, please do reach out to us. You can connect to any of our speakers on their LinkedIn handle, and we would love to help you out. Yeah, so that's all from the questions, I guess. But just to summarize and to also, clarify. Sorry, there's something coming in now. Okay, so we have a question. What are the latest advancements in smart infrastructure, like AI-based traffic management or smart pedestrian crossings to enhance school route safety? Yeah, Anna or Ray, if you want to take this question. Have you included any smart technology elements in your designs, or is that something that you're not interested to look at now, or is it there in the pipeline that you would want to work with it?
That hasn't been included so far. And I think generally what would be beneficial from these smart infrastructure interventions would be its potential for parking reinforcement, because still in a lot of these spaces or in a lot of these school streets, there's a lot of parking violations where for the most part it's reduced, but people still find a way to park or idle for a little bit. And there it could be potentially useful to have camera-based technology or that would allow and assist this in identifying these parking violations, because also in terms of just in terms of human resources as well. It's not possible to have traffic police at all of these schools all the time. But as I mentioned before, it hasn't been part of the project implementation or ideation so far.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So if there are no other questions, we would love to move to the last poll of our webinar. Just give me a minute. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. So this is for the participants. Which strategy do you think is most critical for making school routes safer? So you'll have options in the poll. Please do respond to the option that you think is most critical. The second question is, what is your biggest takeaway from this webinar? Again, you'll have options coming up in the poll. And the last question is, what action will you take after this webinar? Like, are you actively participating in your neighborhoods, in your residents associations? Are you part of your school committees where your students study? What is it that you would want the school authorities or your local leaders to take up to improve safe access to schools for your students? Please make sure that all of you have responded. I think it's been an amazing 1 hour of learning for all of us today. It's interesting to see how across the globe safe access to school for our students is critical. It doesn't matter what nationality, what culture you come from, and it's always priority. It's also interesting to see how much of community engagement is required to implement projects of such scale, uh, and to have the right impact as well, because you're dealing with multiple stakeholders, you have multiple people with agendas as well. So how do you maneuver through all of that and still implement what you can? uh, what's been most impressive for me is how all of this translates to the next generation of citizens in our cities, where they are conscious about the modes that they take up, conscious about what they give back to society and to environment. And I wish that Tirana continues to do the work that they are doing. And I hope that all our participants who've been hearing us out for the last 1 hour do their bit to, at least create awareness regarding safe routes to school, why it's important, not just for students, but also people residing in the vicinity of the school as well. I hope you all had a great time. Uh, but before we leave, if you've liked the webinar, please look out for our next webinar, which is on effective parking management. We'll be posting details of it very soon. So please do join us, register and join us. And thank you so much for joining us today, and wishing you all a very happy day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Can't
Thanks.
wait to hear about your work.
Bye.
Thank you for having us. Bye.